This is the Gooshbagz Fantasy Football League podcast with your host, Jason Peck. That is right, everybody. Welcome back to the Week 16 edition and also going into the championship edition of the 2022 Gooshbagz Fantasy Football League. As always, I am your host, the commissioner of the Gooshbagz Fantasy Football League, and unfortunately, no longer in contention for the championship due to this wonderful man that is joining me for the first time ever on the Gooshbagz Fantasy Football League podcast, Arron. Arron, thank you for joining me.
Absolutely. Happy to be here.
Yeah, well, you get to smack down on me about how your team just absolutely destroyed mine. Through no fault of its own, obviously. I had half of my team injured, so, there's that. That's my cop-out this year, is that my number one quarterback and my first overall pick were both out my last week. So that's going to be my cop-out, but we're already leading the way with excuses.
Well, what does it say that I was still nervous about going into that week? I was up at 40 points, and I was still nervous.
Yeah, you were projected to beat me by like 12. And my team, I don't know. I had to pivot. I should have just stuck with Gardner Minshew, but that still wouldn't have got me anywhere close. I couldn't have Jonathan Taylor. He was out. DeAndre Swift only got me 3 fantasy points. I don't know. I had to patch together a team and that I wasn't confident in. And, it just didn't quite turn out for me. But first, we'll get more in depth in our matchup in a little bit. But first, we got to go through, as always, the injuries in the NFL that happened this week. This week's injuries.
How is he running with a broken leg? Dog, I gotta do this shit. I put the team on my fucking back, though. My leg broke. I don't know how the fuck I'm running right now, though.
As one of my favorite drops, I've got a few in here. I don't know if you've been listening too much, Arron. Probably not. You're
Probably
busy.
Not a whole lot.
Stuff. I added a few new drops this year, and it's been a lot of fun. So, but we got to jump into sad time because we have injuries that we have to talk about. We have Tua, who got his 3rd concussion of the year, I believe. At least it's the 3rd time he's in concussion protocol. He is probably out this week. We'll see how he is going forward. Hopefully his head's not too messed up. We've got Aaron Jones with some sort of ankle injury. He might be okay, I guess. He didn't really miss much of the game, I don't think, but he is on the injury report, I guess, going into this week. It really wasn't too bad for injuries this week, but we've got Jamal Williams, who also had some sort of either ankle or knee injury. Not quite sure if that's even going to keep him out this week. But then Christian Watson, who was on my team, had a hip contusion, a.k.a. a hip bruise, as all of you in the medical field would know. So I don't know. A hip bruise doesn't really sound that bad to me, but, he was out in the 2nd quarter and didn't come back in. So that was also frustrating for my team. So like I said, my hobbled-ass team didn't quite do it. But fortunately for you, you've had no injuries this entire year, and I don't know how the hell that happened.
There's only one guy that I have on the IR, and I think I picked him up late. I'm pretty sure I didn't draft him. And what does that say? That I don't even remember if I drafted him or not.
Yeah, if he is on your team, there's a 9 out of 10 chance that you drafted him because you didn't really make any moves. But
I think I made 6 moves all year.
Yeah, geez, that's insane. We can actually check that stat.
Yeah, I actually picked him up November 19th, so last month.
Yeah, so that's just insane. I don't know how you've been so lucky with injuries. It's really frustrating for somebody who is paying attention and working hard all year to, make pickups to better their team, and you're just sitting here with your Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill bullshit and 5 quarterbacks and somehow getting into the finals. But that's how it goes sometimes. But speaking of which, we did have a top scorer in the league this week who was not in the winner's bracket. In fact, he was in the loser's bracket. It was Ryo, aka the Young Hose, with 148.08 fantasy points. He's getting his $10 this week. I already sent it over, so I'm on top of it this week. So congratulations to Ryo for doing that. And now, congratulations. And now, Arron is very excited. We can move into our matchup for this week. We'll go into the head-to-head matchups for this entire week, which were very important to the final standings of the league. Last week's head-to-head results. All right, as always, we start off with my matchup. The Christian Crusaders versus the newly coined, a.k.a. old named, my tight end Ertzwin Eifert, bringing back the classics, huh, Arron?
I mean, I was just thinking about it the other day, and I was like, when I bring home this trophy, I want the plaque to say the exact same thing. I was like, I can't have it different. It has to be the same.
You have the opportunity to be the first double winner on our trophy. So that's just...
It's going to happen. I'm projected to beat Chad. I'm excited for it.
How did it feel to be actually excited and interested in your fantasy matchup this week?
It's exhausting, if I'm being perfectly honest. So I've really only been paying attention for the past 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks. I think.
Yeah.
I don't think it's been a full 3.
And it's just been tiring for you, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to Adam about it just the other day, and I was just talking about, man, it's so much time that I'm just looking at my lineup, and you can't do anything.
You don't do anything.
Looking at it.
You just sit there and stare, and you come. It's like when you're kind of hungry, but there's nothing in the fridge, and so you keep opening the fridge to see if there's anything different, and there's nothing different, but you check 5 minutes anyways. That's exactly what fantasy football is like. But congratulations to your team. Your team put up 133.46 fantasy points, and my team put up a measly 64.66 fantasy points. I had to play that because I love that drop, and I got dominated. So it was a necessary evil. Number one, there was all sorts of weather that we had to deal with this weekend. There's a lot of difficult weather games. So that also kind of went into this whole spiel of what was going on this weekend. There weren't too many high scoring matchups. So fortunately for you, you picked up Cam Akers this week, which I should have done that in hindsight instead of playing DeAndre Swift. But he was playing against the number 1 run defense, the Denver Broncos, and somehow put up 33 fantasy points, 33.7. It's insane.
Yeah, that was probably the only game that I watched, and of course saw the first touchdown, saw a second touchdown, and I'm just watching these points just stack up. And something reminded me to go take a look at what Courts posted about Cam Akers. He's going to be outscoring Christian McCaffrey. Yeah. I still didn't believe it.
I tell you what, though, it was nice to have you active in the chat for these couple of weeks, and I really enjoyed it. And I hope that you enjoyed it too, and I hope that you continue to partake in the chat more frequently.
I mean, chat was kind of light this past week, so I felt like I was the only one in chat.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh,
well,
okay.
It's gotten lighter because 2/3, 3/4 of the league is basically out of contention for anything cool. So people have not been talking as much. So that's just part of it. And also it was holiday weekends. People were spending time with their families and whatnot too.
That's important.
Yeah, I know. In this time of the fantasy football season, is that really important? Who's to say? But
it's not.
But yeah, I mean, otherwise, like there weren't any other like massive outputs from your team. You had Patrick Mahomes with 23 fantasy points, which is kind of just an average day from Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
But everybody else was like, between 12 and 14 fantasy points was really all that was. Except we did have a very special, some sort of is that a goose? We had a goose from Marcos Valdez-Scantling. 0 fantasy points from MVS, and you were hating on Adam because apparently he gave you the advice to start MVS over Taysom Hill.
I was going to put Taysom Hill in because I had Gibson in at first, and I had the really strong feeling that he's probably not going to do a whole lot. I mean, scored 4 points. It's helpful, but it's almost comical. And so I was going to put in Taysom Hill, and Adam's just like, absolutely not. He's like, you got to put in Scantling. You think about that matchup with Patrick Mahomes. He gets a touchdown, boom, double points. And I was like, you know what? Okay, I'll do it. And then he dropped that. Never listening to Adam again. There's a reason he's not in the championship game.
That's true. That's true. You'd think with a team like his that he would have been in the championship, but he gets knocked out in the first round. So, who's to say? Yeah, Kansas City was one of those games that was impacted by the weather. It wasn't like bad rain or anything like that, or even bad wind, but it was really cold there. I think it was like close to 0 or below, and sometimes that affects passing, sometimes it doesn't. It kind of did in this game, although Patrick Mahomes still had 2 passing touchdowns. I don't know to who. Who did he pass to?
I have no idea. All I know is it wasn't Kelsey.
Kadarius Toney had a receiving touchdown. And Jerick McKinnon caught the other touchdown.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wait, yeah. Who has McKinnon?
Chad has Jerick McKinnon.
Yeah, because I think I played Chad a little bit before. Maybe I was just watching whoever matchup he had.
Yeah.
Because it was just like 2 weeks ago, and he went off for like 30 points. And he was sitting Chad's bench.
I was
very surprised.
2 weeks in a row, Jerick McKinnon was the number 1 running back on the week. And the problem is that's not like, Jerick McKinnon is not somebody who you're going to be playing on a regular basis because he scored more in those 2 weeks than he has the rest of the year combined. So, wow. Yeah.
That's news to me.
Yeah, I mean, he put up like 30 fantasy points each week. So, like, I don't think the rest of the year he scored that much. I mean, Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Isaiah Pacheco were both ahead of him on the depth chart. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's just kind of been deal with that. But yeah, I mean, everybody else on your team just put up solid weeks. Like Etienne had 12, Jerry Jeudy had 14, almost 15. Tyreek Hill had a disappointing 12.
Yeah, I mean, anything over 10 to me is good.
Yeah. So. No, yeah, I would have been happy with anything over 10 from the vast majority of my team. Quarterback only had 6 fantasy points. Derek Carr, and he's now been not released. He's being sad. Yeah, I dropped him.
Is that for the game or off your roster?
No, he's off of my roster.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yep. But yeah, he is. I think he's not traveling with the team for the next 2 weeks. But he was sat. He was going to be the backup. They're sitting him for Jared Stidham, I think.
Did you just drop him?
I did. Yeah. Well, not right now, but I dropped him like I don't know, 30 minutes ago.
Oh, okay. My chat didn't refresh. It said now.
Oh, really?
Just dropped him in the middle of this.
No. No, I'd had him, and I dropped him. I was updating my lineup for this week. But yeah, no, so I dropped him. And yeah, like I said, the Raiders are sitting him. And he's taking, like, I just saw a notification earlier tonight saying he's like taking a leave of absence from Vegas or something for the next 2 weeks. So I don't know what's going on with him, but
yeah,
he had 3 interceptions and played terribly. last week. So good riddance. And then for some reason I started, DeAndre Swift versus Carolina, which is supposedly a good matchup. Didn't do shit. CMC only got 12 fantasy points in a game where they scored 37 real points, so that was kind of disappointing. Juju had 4. DJ Moore had a good game. He had 17.6 fantasy points. He's back. Dalton Schultz, Christian Watson, all just kind of poor games, and nobody really better on the bench. Like, it was a bad showing.
Yeah. Really nothing to be upset about. I mean, like Adam said, you try and put your best lineup out, and if your best lineup doesn't win,
I basically did, except I played the wrong defense. But other than that, all the skill players that I played was basically the best lineup that I could have possibly had. So
yeah.
You can't be too mad, but also, like, I'm frustrated that just, I feel like my team is better than this, and they just all put up duds, and that was really frustrating. But that's all right. We got 1 week left. I can still get my money back, get the 3rd place, and leave on at least an even note, even though I'm not getting the championship. So yeah, we'll move on to the other semifinal matchup of the week. We had Team CM Keen, and like I said, this team, if it's not named and they do happen to win the championship, I'm gonna have to come up with a name to put on the trophy. So you can't have an unnamed team on the trophy.
That's fine. He won't win.
Yeah. Well, right now it's 50-50 shot. He either wins or he doesn't. That's what it is. So, but yeah, I'm kind of spoiling this. It was Team CM Keen versus Cooking Some Lamb, and CM Keen did come out on top to make it to the championship game, 99.2 to 82.7. So once again, a low-scoring matchup. This was kind of the story of the week. The studs kind of played poorly in general, and the people you're not quite expecting to score well, like Cam Akers, went off. So, on Team CM Keen, he had Jared Goff put up a good week of 25 fantasy points. And then he kind of had a dud from Ramondre Stevenson. I think he got hurt. He had 2.3 fantasy points.
All the best to him, but I hope he stays out.
Yeah. Well, who is he playing this week? He's playing Miami, which would be, I guess, a decent matchup. Yeah, I mean, would you rather have him or Jerick McKinnon?
Good question.
Yeah. Jerick McKinnon still had 11 fantasy points this week, so
yeah.
He's still getting a lot of the, he's getting a lot of targets, I think, is kind of what it is. So
yeah, I've been seeing a lot of that.
Baseline. But yeah, like everybody else, nobody else on his team really boomed this week. He had a lot of, similar to your team, he had a lot of players within the 10 to 15 range, as you're seeing here. So, 11 from Pollard, 11 from Amon-Ra, 13 from A.J. Brown, all sorts of points. So yeah, nothing too exciting, but nothing bad really from his team, besides Ramondre, who got hurt. So on the other side, we had Geno Smith, who only put up 12.2 fantasy points. A disappointing day from Josh Jacobs and Dalvin Cook and DeAndre Hopkins. DeAndre Hopkins, check out this score line, or this stat line. 1 catch on 10 targets. 4 yards.
Yikes.
Yes, terrible. That was atrocious. He had 0.9 fantasy points. And he had a big game from James Conner. He had 21.5 fantasy points, but just couldn't overcome these poor games from multiple people who you would consider studs. Hey, there's a doggo. What's up, Winnie? How's it going?
Puppy? We
got a fantastic guest star. Winnie, what did you think of this matchup?
What did you think? Well, I think she tried to lick it. So
yeah,
I think she likes it.
Yeah, It was a good matchup, and it sent Chad to the finals. So we've got a matchup between you and Chad for first place in the league. Who'd have thought? Chad, halfway through this year, we thought his team was lost to the, he had a terrible team. And he made himself a good trade in trading away Christian McCaffrey for my Ramondre Stevenson and A.J. Brown. And I don't know who got the better end of that deal. Probably him. But his team turned it around in the second half here, and they have gone on a run. Number 6 seed all the way up to the top. So yeah, we'll see how that matchup goes, and we'll preview it a little bit later. But for now, we will move on to matchup number 3, which was the 5th place game. Sir Lancelot versus Jerry's Kids. Now this was a high-scoring matchup. We had Sir Lancelot putting up 118.2 fantasy points to Jerry's Kids 108.76 fantasy points. In this matchup, let's see. On Sir Lancelot's team, he had Austin Eckler and CeeDee Lamb and TJ Hawkinson. He had 3 massive games from players on his team. It was really a game of booms and busts from his team, because he had those 3 who put up almost 80 fantasy points for him, right around 80 fantasy points. And the rest of his team only put up 40 total. So, not so great from the likes of Devontae Adams and Stephon Diggs and Aaron Jones. They all had rough weeks this week, but all in all, they were able to overcome those duds from those players to put up 118 fantasy points. On the other side, we have Derrick Henry, who put up 17.6 fantasy points, Justin Jefferson, who put up 25.3, and some okay games from Trevor Lawrence, who put up 18 fantasy points, and the Vikings D, who put up 11. Other than that, some okay games, not very good games in general. So, on that side of the ball, unfortunately, Jerry's Kids taking the 6th place spot. Sir Lancelot, aka Adam, taking the 5th place of the year. So congratulations to Adam. Congratulations to Brandon. Both of you made it in the top. Well, no, sorry, Brandon, you didn't make it in the top half, but you made it to the playoffs, and that's congratulations. Congratulations. Did you have any insights in this matchup, Aaron?
Not really. That's one I really follow closely. I just kind of just watching the score as it went along.
Yeah. There's not much to that matchup. There's nothing to win in the 5th place spot. So yeah, nothing too exciting about that matchup. But like I said, next week we've only got 2 matchups really. I don't think there are any other matchups going on. But still set your lineups. I'll be checking them to see what everybody scored, because you still have a chance next week to win $10 if you have the best lineup in. So don't forget that. You can still make some money back by doing that. So, all right, on to potentially the most meaningful matchup of the week. It was the Toilet Bowl, a.k.a. the Sacco. We have More is Less versus Saquon, you see. And this was a tight matchup, very tight matchup. And the final score was Saquon, you see, put up 103.54 fantasy points to the More is Less's 103.06 fantasy points. So this was decided by less than half a point. And thank goodness for Benaya that there were no stat corrections this week, because that could have been terrible. But you know what this means is that Courts has reined in both of the penalties for this year, the punishments, if you will. He has both the driver's license cover or frame that's going to be sent his way. And also, I think he has said that he's interested in doing that calendar, which would be fantastic. I would love to have a calendar for the league done by the loser. But he also has his draft and address next year. So there we go. He's got both of the penalties. So congratulations to Benaya for not getting any of the penalties. Congratulations to Courts for being such a good sport, knowing his team was hot garbage going into the second half of the year. So congrats for being a good sport, but also congratulations for the punishments.
I think I say first to worst really surprised me on that.
Yeah, I mean, so what didn't really work out for him was basically everything. But his, I'm trying to remember who his keepers were.
I think Kittle was probably one. I think I was pretty sure he had Kittle last year, but I don't know for sure.
He did, but I don't know if he kept him. Let's see, drafted with the 4th round pick. I think he kept T. Higgins. And he had his starter, Javonte Williams. He might have kept Javonte Williams. No, he got him in the 2nd round in the draft, so probably not.
Yeah, I know that would be in the league chat, but that would be a farce search.
Yeah, I don't remember who the other keeper was. I think, okay. I don't know.
Ooh, search in conversation.
Might have been T. Higgins. No, he was picked with 3. Round 3. That wouldn't make sense.
Yeah, because there's a message from Courts. That's just clarifying rules in the league chat. But I think that's it.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
So yeah, I don't know if I'd be able to figure out who is whose.
Wait, I might have mock drafts from earlier this year.
Oh.
That would. Oh, I think they erased my mock drafts. Yeah, they did. That's too bad. Yep, they erased all my mock drafts. But yeah, so I don't know. I'm not sure who all of his keepers were, but unfortunately, he's got a good, or fortunately, I guess he's got a good chance at the 1st overall pick next year. So congratulations for him. And yeah, hopefully he can build up his team back up from the bottom, and we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I mean, overall, I mean, he was able to, or I guess Benaya was able to kind of eke himself over the top with Saquon Barkley and Jalen Waddle. They scored most of the points there. They scored almost half of his fantasy points. And everybody else was just kind of meh. Tom Brady was bad. Joe Mixon was decent. We did get a goose from Gerald Everett with 0 fantasy points on Benaya's team. So despite that, he was able to eke out the victory to not be last place. But yeah, neither of the quarterbacks were good on Courts' side. He only had Justin Fields, who put up 9 fantasy points. But he did have T. Higgins, George Kittle, putting up some good weeks. Brandon Ayuk did decent. I should have kept him on my team. He scored better than all of my wide receivers. So I should have just kept him to play him. But sorry. Other than that,
that's fine. I've been stifling out yawns all day.
Other than that, yeah, nothing too great about that, or nothing too exciting about that matchup in general. But congratulations to Courts for getting both of the penalties / punishments for the year. All right, on to the last matchup that really didn't mean anything this year or this week. For 7th and 8th place, we have the Young Hoes versus Team Go-Go Clifford. The Young Hoes put up a massive 148.08 fantasy points this week to Team Go-Go Clifford's 88.86. And this was just a blowout. Not as big of a blowout as ours, but pretty close. So, yeah, I mean, Ryo just had great games from everybody besides Mike Evans. He just had solid games from everybody. And on the other side, we had a negative 2 points from Nick Folk. We had Adam Thielen who only put up 1.1. So, just nothing so great on one side and a lot of things great on the other side, really.
Yeah, when your kicker puts in 18 points, I mean, that's when you're having a good week.
Yeah, that's a 20-point difference just in the kickers there. So I know how that feels. So congratulations to Ryo on getting 7th place in the league. You were almost close to Brandon, who is 6th place. So congrats. Just one step down. All right, let's move on. Now we've got the weekly awards. Now, like I said, they stopped doing the weekly awards in the chat, but I think I managed to get all of the weekly awards for this week. We had the best team was Ryo, who put up 148 fantasy points. The worst team was obviously my team, who put up 64.6 fantasy points. The most efficient manager was Neil, who put up 82 of a possible 89 fantasy points. That was like 92%, I think, of his possible points. The least efficient manager was Adam, who only put up 118, but his maximum points for possible was 156. So he left like 40 points on the board, Adam. We had the highest points in a loss for the second week in a row was Brandon. The lowest points in a win was Chad this week. The biggest blowout was you, Aaron. So congratulations on that.
Thank you for your participation.
Oh, yes, of course. I played a part in that biggest blowout. A very small part, but it was a part. The narrowest victory was Benaya, like we said, by less than half a point. The overachiever, who scored best against their projection, was Ryo, 148. He was projected for 106. And the underachiever was me. I scored like 36 points less than my projection. So, yeah, those are the weekly awards. So congratulations to all of you. I was on there for the 2 worst ones, but that's fine. We'll move on. We'll move on and we'll have a good week this week and I'll win my money back. That's all I'm playing for now. All right, let's go. Weekly waiver wire studs.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubblegum.
That's right, we're all out of bubblegum. This team has no more bubblegum, and all they're doing is kicking ass. We have the quarterback, Gardner Minshew, putting up 22.7 fantasy points this week. We've got the running back 1 of the waiver wire team, Deonta Foreman, putting up 22.5 fantasy points. Running back 2 is Raheem Blackshear with 8 fantasy points. We have wide receiver 1, Kendrick Bourne, putting up 21.9 fantasy points. Wide receiver 2 was Isaiah Hodgins with 18.9. At the tight end spot, we've got Tyler Higbee putting up 25.9 fantasy points. In the flex, the other tight end of the week that put up a massive week was Shane Zylstra, who scored 3 touchdowns for the Detroit Lions with 23.1 fantasy points. We have the Rams defense putting up 22 fantasy points, and Matt Gay, the Rams kicker, putting up 19 fantasy points. This team, do you have a guess of how many points this team would put up, Aaron? An estimate, adding all them together.
I'm going to estimate probably about 136. I don't know. I wasn't really paying too much attention to the scores.
That's all right. It's way more than 136. It's 184 fantasy points. So
pretty close.
This team destroyed us once again. They beat us by like 40 fantasy points. The waivers are 13-3 for the year. I think we've beat them 3 times this year. So not too bad. Not too bad. But, Aaron, are you prepared? This is the second to last segment of not the year, because we're gonna have we'll have an episode next week, but before the championships. Are you prepared
Or
for the second to last segment of this podcast tonight?
sure, let's go.
Let's do it. Next week's matchup predictions.
I can see the future. I have to stop you from destroying my race. In the future,
We already did that.
I know you'd do that.
You got some nice quips.
I know. I was able to find some good drops. So, all right. So for the first time, I think ever since I've done these matchup predictions, I did not put my matchup first because there's a matchup that is more important next week. Is the championship matchup. We've got Team My Tight End Ertzwin Eifert versus Team CM Keen, aka the Pits. That's going to be the team name if he does win, because he had Kyle Pitts on his team the whole year. All right, yeah. So let us take a look at these matchups. We've got well, first we'll go through your team. You've got Patrick Mahomes versus Denver. Not a very good matchup, but Patrick Mahomes is basically matchup proof. We've got Travis Etienne versus Houston. He should just destroy Houston. We've got Cam Akers versus the Chargers, which is also a fantastic matchup. We got Jerry Jeudy versus Kansas City. Tyreek Hill versus New England. Travis Kelce also versus Denver, which is surprisingly a good matchup for tight ends. And we got Antonio Gibson in the flex spot versus Cleveland. That's a good matchup for him if he's healthy. So yeah, those are some pretty good matchups, all green down that side, except for Patrick Mahomes. You considering putting in Justin Herbert or Joe Burrow instead because
Absolutely
of the
not. They've been riding the bench all year, and that's where they're gonna stay. Don't fix it if it ain't broke.
just hogging all the QBs. On the other side, we've got Jared Goff versus Chicago, which is a good matchup. We've got Ramondre Stevenson, possibly, versus Miami. We've got Tony Pollard, also questionable, versus Tennessee, this hobbled-ass team. We've got Amon-Ra St. Brown versus Chicago. We've got A.J. Brown versus New Orleans. Juwan Johnson versus Philadelphia. Keenan Allen versus the Rams. And Evan McPherson versus Buffalo. And I believe he picked up the Chargers defense versus the Rams, who is a very good matchup.
Yeah,
So,
he just picked up the Chargers, I'm pretty sure. So, yeah, I'll probably just put them in. But
probably play them.
We'll see when that comes through.
Yeah. So, who do you have winning this matchup?
Oh, me, hands down.
Oh, all right.
That's what Sleeper predicts. That's what's going to happen. Sleeper's never wrong.
Right. Projections are the truth. Nothing will ever go wrong with projections. You're right. I think unfortunately, as much as it pains me to say this, I think you're going to be the first person with 2 victories on our trophy. I'm going to pick my tight end, Ertz, when Eifert.
Sounds like you have a problem, Jason. You should probably get that checked out.
Yes, it is a problem. It is a problem that I'm rooting for your team. Your basically auto-drafted team to win. No, that's the only thing you put effort into this year was actually drafting your team. So,
about halfway through, that's when I started drafting the quarterbacks.
That's true. Yeah, you put in half effort. You picked Patrick Mahomes, you picked Travis Kelce, and you picked Tyreek Hill, and then after that, you just kind of BS your way through the rest of it.
Pretty much. I mean, I do have a very solid draft method, and I've not been secretive about it. I mean, it's all about last year, this year's projected, and name recognition. If I have heard of them, they must be doing something right.
That's true. Yeah, and there were lots of people that were questioning like a Travis Kelce like in the first round sort of pick.
Oh, hands down. I would do it again.
Yeah, you did it with the third pick of the draft, which was insane. But like, to be honest, like that has probably been the best pick of the entire year. Like Travis Kelce is hands down a massive improvement over every other tight end in the entire league by far, especially this year where there's not a solid like 2 or 3.
Yeah.
So Travis Kelce has just been a monster for you. And that has really helped you through this entire year. And having Patrick Mahomes as a stack has not hurt in the least.
I mean, the tight end has always been my weakest position. So, you always figure just draft up to that one. I mean, there's plenty of wide receivers. There's plenty of running backs. I'll get some people. It might not be the best, but they'll still put up some solid numbers.
Exactly. Yeah. So, that plus being lucky with injuries this year has kind of propelled you on this wild ride where you are first place going into the championship. So, good luck this week.
Well, thank you. Might make a move or two before tomorrow.
Oh, interesting.
Not totally set.
I think having Antonio Gibson in the flex there is definitely your weak spot. So we'll have to see who that ends up being.
Yeah, I gotta wait for people to be confirmed or not for tomorrow's games.
That makes sense. So good luck to you. Good luck to Chad. Both of you. I know you won't want luck to Chad, but we're giving luck to Chad anyway.
Good luck, Chad. May the best man win.
Yes, may the best team win for sure. All right, on to the third place game. This is the only other matchup that is in Sleeper currently. The rest of you guys, like I said, set your lineups. We'll make sure that we get the $10 to the highest scoring person no matter what. So even though you don't have matchups this week, keep an eye out and score your best. But for the third place game, we've got the Christian Crusaders versus Cooking Some Lamb. And on my side, let's take a look. Like I said, there may also be some tweaks in here depending on the health of players and whatnot. But we've got Jalen Hurts coming back off of injury, hopefully, against New Orleans. We've got DeAndre Swift versus Chicago, which is a good matchup. So hopefully he plays well there. We got Christian McCaffrey versus Vegas, the Raiders, which is also a very good matchup. We've got DJ Moore versus Tampa Bay. We've got Garrett Wilson in versus Seattle. We've got Dalton Schultz against Tennessee tomorrow night. And we've got Christian Watson versus Minnesota. And I still got Chase McLaughlin and I got the Eagles D in here. So not too bad. We'll have to see how the matchups go, but some pretty good matchups. Maybe not the greatest players, but we'll. I've been patching together teams this whole year, so we'll see how it goes. On the other side, we've got Geno Smith versus the Jets. We've got Josh Jacobs versus San Francisco. We've got Dalvin Cook versus Green Bay. We've got DeAndre Hopkins versus Atlanta. Amari Cooper at Washington. He's always been bad on the road, so Amari Cooper, I'm not expecting to have a good week. We've got Noah Fant versus the Jets. We've got James Conner versus Atlanta. Jason Myers at the Jets, and the Chiefs defense versus Denver. Who you got winning this matchup?
I don't know. I mean, projections are close, and that's where I heavily rely on in terms of my overall opinion. Yeah. But, I mean, granted, if everybody's healthy, I mean, I think I got to give it up to you.
Nice. I agree. I think, like I said, got some really good matchups, especially in the running back spot. So, yeah, assuming everybody's healthy, Christian Watson against Minnesota is potentially a massive week waiting to happen. So hopefully he's healthy. A hip contusion. How long do you think he'd be back from a hip contusion, Mr. EPT?
I mean, honestly, it depends on how big it is. I didn't even know he got hurt, to be honest. But I mean, yeah, if it's a pretty sizable one, if it's a pretty deep bruise, that's going to keep him out for quite a few weeks probably. But I mean, if it's something that's obviously relatively less severe, then definitely could be back. I'd have to take a look at how he got it hurt and reports on those.
Yeah, I'm sure you're going to do a deep dive into Christian Watson's hip bruise.
Probably not.
So yeah, so that's it. That's our matchup predictions for this next week. The last thing we got is we do have one question. So we will have a where is my questions? My mail time drop. There it is. All right, we've got one question this week from Benaya. He put it in the chat earlier today, yesterday, one of these days. Let's go get to it. Mail time. Mail time. Mail time. That's right. We've got a question from Benaya. Will Adam ever put together a better team? And I added this part. What shot does he ever have of winning if he can't put together a better team than he's got this year?
I honestly it all comes down to tinkering.
Yeah.
He tinkers way too much. He spends way too much time overthinking. You just got to make a decision. You got to stick with it.
You know, if anybody, if anybody can attest to that, it's you, because you've won 2 out of the last 3 years. Or no. You're contending this year. You're contending for another for your second title in 3 years. And all you do is put in your highest projection players. Draft well, put in your highest projection players, and then just leave it.
That's pretty much been the strategy. I mean, and how many times have I beaten Adam with an incomplete lineup over the past 4 years? I mean, it routinely happens. He over-tinkers. You know, he puts in the just absolutely atrocious people, thinking they're going to have fantastic weeks, and they never do.
Yeah.
He's like, you look at the matchup, you look at what they're going to do. There's too many assumptions.
Mm-hmm.
You can't base your team on assumptions.
Right. I think I do the same thing. I've done a lot of tinkering this year, and I've gotten a few losses because of my tinkering. So, maybe next year I'll just be as relaxed as ever and just do what you the highest players on your team and go from there.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if I was paid more attention to even just setting my lineups for the first few weeks, I might have just been number 1 seed from the start.
Oh, okay. Oh, you're just paying attention to set your lineups, not paying attention to try to make better decisions.
Oh yeah, no, not doing that at all. I don't tinker. That's why I don't trade.
Yeah,
it's the same kind of thing. People send me trades, and I'm like, no, not tinkering. I drafted these people for a reason. Unless I got a solid reason to pick somebody up or drop them back down, leave it.
Yeah, like to fill a lineup. That's the only time you've ever made moves.
Pretty much. Yeah, because like I said, I think there's only been 6 roster moves from me this year.
Yeah. Well, I can't believe you're in this position, but congratulations, Aaron, for being in this position. And thank you for being on the call. I really appreciate you joining for the first time ever. It's been great to have you on. Do you have any last words before you get into the championship weekend here?
The only words I'm going to say, Chad's going down and Adam Stonewall sucks.
All right. You heard him. Those are the famous words from Aaron Buck going into the championship week. The rest of you, good luck. Set your lineups this week. Try to win that $10. And Neil, you're going down this week. I'm going to take you out. I'm going to get 3rd place, get my money back, and win $10 from you guys. That is my goal this weekend. But either way, I will be back next week for a fantastic finale episode of the Gooshbagz Fantasy Football League podcast. Deuces, and just enjoy football this week. You guys aren't playing for anything. Most of us aren't playing for anything. So just enjoy watching football for the first time this year instead of worrying about rooting for specific people. So you guys have a wonderful week, and we will catch you next week. See you guys.